There is a poem from Iran, 900 years old, written by a man named Farid ad-Din Attar in the city of Nishabur. He was a pharmacist, but on the side wrote one of the great works of Sufi literature. I was 13 when I performed a play based on this poem in one of the biggest theaters in Tehran. The poem is called Mantaroter, which means the conference or the language of the birds. It is about a flock of birds looking for their king. They heard about a great bird named the Simurgh, living beyond 7 impossible valleys at the top of a mountain. So they chose a leader, a small bird with a golden crest seen as a symbol of wisdom, named the Hudhud. So they begin their journey. But the valleys are hard, and one by one they begin to quit. The peacock won't leave his garden, the parrot is afraid, and the nightingale, the character I played, says she can't leave her flowers, but she explains it in the only way she knows, by singing it. Every bird in the poem has a poetic way and reason not to go on. But every time a bird wants to quit, the Hudhud doesn't argue or lecture. It tells a tale, a story about love, longing, and loss. And somehow, by the end of the Hudhud's story, the bird can see past what it was afraid of and continues its journey. Because advice speaks to the mind, but a story reaches the heart. 1 year later, I became the nightingale, for real. My flowers were at Tehran, my neighborhood, my school, my friends, the city I had known my whole life. Like the nightingale loved the rose, I too loved all of this too much to leave. But I did. When my family moved to Canada. Leaving was hard, but the story of Mantaroter reminded me that I was not alone, nor the first person to stand at the edge of a valley and not be able to cross. This 900-year-old Sufi poem was exactly what I needed to hear. Many teenagers today are standing at the edge of their own valleys. Anxiety, stress, loneliness. They're real. There's no doubt. But they can point all these challenges back to ourselves. And we can get stuck in the smallest possible scenario. And that is just me, alone, with what I feel, my anxiety, my stress, my loneliness. But stories do the opposite. They place us in something bigger. A myth says, you are not the first person to be afraid. A poem says, you are not the first person to love something that you have to let go of. A fable says, someone crossed this valley before you. That is why old stories survive. Not because they're entertaining, because someone needed them. Someone was leaving. Someone was grieving. Someone was afraid. Advice speaks to the mind, but a story helps us find the courage to continue. At the end of the language of the birds, 30 birds finally reached the top of the mountain. But they didn't find the king they were looking for. So they looked at each other and realized that the simurgh was not a separate bird. Because in Persian, si means 30, morgh means bird. Simurgh, 30 birds. The king they were searching for is what they became after crossing the valleys together. They crossed their valleys, so did I, and so can you. That is what old stories do. They remind us that we are not alone. These stories are closer than you think. They're in your families, in our cultures, in the people who are still with us and still remember. So ask them. Ask your grandparents, your parents, an aunt, an uncle, an elder. Ask what stories they grew up hearing. Ask what their parents told them when life got hard. And you may receive not one, but two beautiful gifts at once. A story to help you when things get hard, and a piece of your culture that would otherwise disappear when they are gone. And that story may become the hudhud of your heart, guiding you forward. Thank you.